Mediterranean. The transformation of the production model, the digital transition, and the sustainable transition. This thematic seminar has provided a platform of debate. As I already told you yesterday at the beginning of the meeting, I really think that the debate is going to contribute, as the previous Med 5+5 seminars have already done, to improve the network and the regional integration. Throughout the different roundtables, we have seen different ways of forward to sustain and bolster the cooperation in the Western Mediterranean within the framework of the consequences of the COVID-19 pandemic. Many ideas have risen during these 2 days, and we've seen how the post-pandemic context has provided for risk, but also for opportunities to give a fresh impetus to the cooperation, but also the importance of the resilience in the long-term challenges facing us, whether structural or generated by COVID-19 crisis. We have heard words like integration, inclusion, the importance of the youth. We have realized again how important is the 5+5 dialogue in a more inclusive format when taking formal decisions. We have also seen the importance of enhancing value chains in the Western Mediterranean conditions for a win-win reconfiguration of the production model. Integration again, inclusion again, the importance of youth. Benefits are clear for the North and South Mediterranean countries, reducing vulnerability, risk, diversification, job creation, education, new policies, governance, implementing laws, transfer of knowledge, and improving competitiveness for the South-South and with the North. And the importance of ensure water security as well for sustainable future. The climate and the climate change. This is one of the most critical issues for the next decades in the region. If nothing changes, more than half of inhabitants of the region could be considered water poor by 2024. The consequences of that will threaten the human security while challenging sustainable development in the region. It's crucial, as we heard, to accelerate efforts. In the 5+5 water strategy, launched in 2014 by Spain and Algeria, provides a roadmap to harmonize water policies through the adoption of cross-cutting goals, management criteria, and operational objectives in the region. And the smart Western Mediterranean cities, the potential of digital transformation or sustainable urban development. We have here talking about new cities, data cities, master cities, startup cities, the smart cities in the Western Mediterranean at the junction of the regional urban and Mediterranean digital agendas could be a key contribution to make urban territories inclusive, safe, resilient, and sustainable. All these issues and more examples have been on the table during the forum. But I do not want to extend much more because the program has been very wide. I just want to thank to all of you for your participations, members of the UFM, UMA, civil society, members of governments, ambassadors, speakers, etc. Thank you very much for all your presentations and your interesting reflections. I give the floor to my colleague. Please, Isidro, or, excuse me, Roger, sorry. Okay, thank you very much.
Well, thank you so much, Cristina. Thank you for this wonderful time that we had in Madrid these 2 days. Thank you to all of you for your presence up till the very end of this MedThink 5+5 forum, and allow me to start expressing my gratitude to our co-organizer, the Secretariat of the Union for the Mediterranean, which has been like that already since the times when the Secretary General was Fatala Sisil Massi. So for the last 4 years, we have been coming together in organizing this MedThink 5+5 fora. And allow me also to especially thank Casa Árabe and its team, Cristina, but also Olivia and Karim for their warm support. It's been a long journey, the organization of this forum, taking into account that it's the first let's say, international event that we as IMED organize after the pandemic. And we have been facing all kind of restrictions for those that organize these kind of international events, multinational events. You will see how hard and difficult it is to, well, basically convene people from the north and the south of the Mediterranean nowadays when the pandemic is already phasing out, basically because of restrictions within here. Just a couple of weeks ago, this auditorium could only be half used, so we didn't know how many people we could actually host. But also to bring people from the south of the Mediterranean, as the director from the Algerian Ministry of Foreign Affairs reminded us today, yesterday, in fact, it is still very hard, the mobility within the region. So, of course, this has brought extra burden into the organization of this forum, and of course, as IMED, we are happy and delighted to have you all here, especially our special guest, the Secretary General of the Arab Maghreb Union, who, since I think 2016, he keeps on coming and committing to this forum, and of course it is an honor to host him every year, and of course it is also a sign from the side of the organizers of support to the role that this organization has to play in bringing together the peoples and the nations and the economies of the Maghreb. So that being said, and before the final thanks, I would like to once again state that the level and the accumulation of multiple crises that we are facing in the Western Mediterranean gives us a very complex time and environment at the moment. We have regional crises, namely the climate change and the human mobility crisis, but this is coupled with the domestic crisis. I think it was the Tunisian ambassador whose presence here today I also want to thank because she's been here for the 2 days. So the domestic crisis, and then lately we have an increase. We have been witnessing an increase of bilateral crises between the countries of our region, mainly at the political level. Of course, when we see this accumulation of crises that we witness at the moment, and I think it was Ambassador O'Rourke who said yesterday, it is more important than ever that we basically strengthen and promote regional, sub-regional, and multilateral frameworks, because it is the way, not the only way, but it is a good way to basically soften some of these crises. As we could also see from the speeches yesterday, from the political session, the 5+5 dialogue is a very useful framework, but it is a framework that we cannot demand more of what it is already doing. It is sometimes difficult, and this is what we try together with my colleagues, what we try to do to converge and make this exercise of convergence between the objectives that the European Union through the neighborhood policy is now putting on the table, and the instruments that the 5+5 dialogue has for sub-regional cooperation. And that's why in this forum, well, we picked the two main thematic axis objectives that the European Union, through the new agenda for the Mediterranean, has currently put on the table, the green transition, the digital transition, and we have tried and attempted to look at the sub-regional dimension in the eyes of the 5+5 dialogue of these two main subjects. Of course, this gives us, I would say, not only a multi-stakeholders program, but also a multidisciplinary program. That's why, well, we discussed value chains on the one hand, so new models of production. We also discussed water cooperation. We also discussed smart cities. But in reality, this is one of the richness of this MedThink 5+5 fora that allows us not only to gather people from various backgrounds, both professional and national, but also to look at different angles of subjects that the European Union, the European Commission, the External Action Service is giving a top priority at the moment, and that from one angle or another, we should also push the 5+5 dialogue to move into and to try to understand these new forms of cooperation, because at the end of the day, these new forms of cooperation reflects the real needs that the region has at the moment. So thank you very much for your presence, especially for those who came from overseas. And my final words go for my team at IMED, because they have been working very hard in very precarious conditions with lots of uncertainties, organizing different events in parallel. We also had a face-to-face event last week in the Palace of Pedralbes. We are a small team, but extremely committed to the cause that we defend, and I would like to especially give my thanks to Antoine, who is the official that works in the department, and his assistant Matthias, for the great work that they have been doing. So thank you to both of you especially, and thank you to the rest of the audience. And now it is my honor to introduce our final speaker today, Isidro González, who is a well-known, long-experienced diplomat who is serving now as Deputy Secretary General of the Union for the Mediterranean, in charge of three very well interconnected subjects and timely subjects as well, which are water, environment, and the blue economy. Isidro comes from originally, even though he has been serving in the ministry here in Madrid and in many different posts, and in Rabat before joining the UFM, he comes from the Canary Islands, which is the Spanish territory, I would say, that combines almost perfectly the African and the Atlantic dimension. So he brings a lot of not only motivation, but a new angle into Euro-Mediterranean cooperation. We're very happy that you found the time to be with us at the closing, and you have the floor. Thank you.
So thank you, Roger. Thank you for being here, ambassadors, Christina, the acting director, and good friend. Thank you for being here. I think it's been very interesting these 2 days. As Roger said here, I come from the Canary Islands. I should be working for the Union for the Atlantic, but for the moment we have not invented that, so we are working for the Union for the Mediterranean, and which is very proudly hosted by Spain in the beautiful city of Barcelona. And which is an organization that we are trying to push to strengthen again from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Spain, and with the help of many countries. For the second year in a row, we will have in Barcelona, this year will be the 29th of November, back-to-back, our ministerial meeting, which is called the Regional Forum, our meeting of Ministers of Foreign Affairs, back-to-back with the ministerial meeting of the southern neighborhood of the European Union. So for the second time in a row, these two meetings, especially the southern neighborhood one, will take place in Spain. So this is becoming like an institutional fact, and it is a success for the Spanish diplomacy, which I also represent very proudly. So here in these 2 days, we have been talking about the prospects for future of the 5+5 dialogue. What we do at the Union for the Mediterranean is a 27 plus 15 dialogue. We represent 42 countries, those of the European Union, 27 plus 15 countries from the Mediterranean region, going even to Mauritania, which is not very Atlantic, very Mediterranean, but it belongs to the Mediterranean policy framework, actually. The three main transformations that have been dealt with in these 2 days, the transformation of the production model, the digital transition, and the sustainability transitions, were three of the conclusions of last year regional forum of the Union for the Mediterranean, which was a special one because we were celebrating the 25th anniversary of the Barcelona process. These three transformations, especially the sustainability transition, is a very important one because some of you, maybe you don't know that the Mediterranean region is the second most affected region in the planet, only after the Arctic, by climate change. Temperatures in the Mediterranean region are rising 20% faster than the average in the rest of the planet. So we are a real hotspot of climate change. Also, we have seen in different sessions, as a way of conclusion, and the importance of enhancing regional value chains. Why going to Asia to get products when we can make them, build them, or make them nearby? We can go to Morocco. I think the example of the external trade between Spain and Morocco is a success story. How we have delocalized some industries in textile, energy, etc., which are now in Morocco, creating employment and facilitating our industrial growth, not only in Spain but also in Morocco. This is one example that could be enhanced and could serve as a model. The water security, which is an issue, as Roger said, that I'm dealing with permanently, is also a hot issue. In the Mediterranean region, we are 7% of the world population, but we only have 3% of the water of the planet, 3%. So this is very little. So there is a mismatch in there that we have to handle by using very creative ways. Sometimes desalinations. We have to foster the reuse of water. And this is where we are working at the Union for the Mediterranean. Now we will have soon in December in Malta the 4th Mediterranean Water Forum. And next year in Palma, Mallorca, it was announced yesterday by the Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs of Spain, the Secretary of State. There will be also an important meeting, ministerial level, on water investment and how in the post-COVID-19 situation, how it has affected the issue of water. Concerning water during the pandemic, we had a contradiction. In the northern shore of the Mediterranean, the water consumption diminished because the industry had to stop because of the pandemic. On the southern shore of the Mediterranean and the eastern shore of the Mediterranean was a country. The use of water increased dramatically by 15% or 20% in some countries. So there's been an important situation during the COVID-19, and it's time now to meet together at ministerial level in Palma, Mallorca, next year, hopefully in May, we think, Ramiro, more or less, to tackle this issue and work together and to mobilize investment and funding for the water sector, which needs a huge investment, huge money, and we need to mobilize those financial institutions. And finally, in the last session, we hear very important comments on the creation of smart cities in the Mediterranean. I have my colleague Victoria and good friend from the Union for the Mediterranean here, among other guests. The creation of smart cities has been accelerated also by the COVID-19, a pandemic that has shown our weaknesses, but also our strength. COVID-19 is like climate change. It does not distinguish between countries. It affects all of us. It doesn't know about borders or provinces or regions. We have to tackle that together. That's the only way. So now I'm proud, as Roger said before, to work again with IMED, which is already our partner in this trip together. And it is always an honor to be in Casa Árabe, which is an example of the success model of Spanish public diplomacy, the model of the Casas, Casa Árabe, Casa América, Casa Asia, Casa Africa, Casa Mediterráneo. We have 5 already. So it's been a good opportunity, and I look forward to seeing you all next year. I don't know in which country, do you know, right? Will it be? But anyway, look forward that it will take place. Looking forward to seeing you in whatever the country which will host this meeting, because it's important to sit down together, to share our views, and then to try to distribute our knowledge and our lessons learned here to the people, to the region of the Mediterranean, where we need to talk together, not only in Western Mediterranean, which is a 5+5 territorial area, but to extend these ideas to the rest of the Mediterranean, and maybe especially, I will say, to Eastern Mediterranean, where the dialogue is even most needed. It's needed all over the Mediterranean, but in Western Mediterranean particularly, we have some issues still pending in Palestine, Israel, the gas crisis, Turkey, Egypt, etc., etc., etc. So it's a good thing that we talk together and we spread the language of peace and dialogue to our region. Thank you again, and I hope you have a nice day in Madrid. Thank you.
¿Alguien ha olvidado aquí esto? Sí. ¿Alguien ha olvidado esto? Ah, bueno, puede ser.
Me acaban de preguntar si tenéis un